Okay, on our recent video on splitting the TEA 20, everyone noticed I have a Sparex splitting stand under the tractor. And look, it's a great thing. It was not sponsored by Sparex. I bought that. That's the little shortest one. I have the taller one too that I still bought that off Sparex just for the bigger tractors. But before I ever had that, I made this. So people have been saying, oh, it's a nice splitting stand and all that with the Sparex one, but it's so expensive, and you know, that's just how people talk. And so I thought I'd take the time this stew just to show you my homemade splitting stand and what I did for it. So I got a piece of 1/4 inch plate. It's just 1/4 inch mild steel plate, and in my case the plate is 250 millimeters wide, or 10 inches roughly, and it's 12 inches or 300 long. And it'll be that size because that's just what I had laying around. There's nothing nothing in it, just that. So I got these pieces of pipe, and I had just, I don't know what size these bearings are, say 35 mil, so I must have had a bit of 1.5 inch round hanging about. So I machined a circlip groove in there, and I used some second-hand bearings. Now the bigger the bearing you go here, the better probably. Just sheer ass that this actually fits beautifully in the Sparex rail. So outside to outside is 2.5 inch. So these bearings are 3 inch, 75 mil by 35, and you can see that little plug weld there, and there's one there. And all I did was, when I found this piece of pipe, this is thick wall tube, you could use a bit of galvanised pipe, whatever. These are light tractors, don't overdo it. And so on this axle's solid into about 3 inches up the pipe. And I drilled through the pipe and straight through. Then when I deburred it and put this shaft up, I just did a plug weld top and bottom. So that's not going to come out in a fit. The little circlet groove there. Now before I had a lathe, I built one the same many years ago, and I just got the welder and just tack welded the inner race to the axle there. That bloody thing worked for years. Sold it with a business, worked for years. Like it just went for ages. So that covers the little trolley. Now my wheels are getting a bit stuck there, and look, it's just because of dust, because I've had it sitting on the floor. So you've made yourself a nice little trolley there. You can see this is slightly, it has bowed a little bit, but it bowed when I was welding this. So it's never been a problem. So we'll pull this piece out. Now this next section there, you can see that's a bit of triangle tube, and these two pieces are just offcuts off a PDO shaft I had to shorten. And I used this because with a piece of pipe welded here, that's fine, you know, you can weld the pipe on, no worries, but I didn't want everything turning when I was trying to bring the thread up and down. So I also made a couple of spaces, and this inner, that brings it down to fit the rod, and with the inner there, oh, where are we? Get it right. So I have another one somewhere with this down here, so it just gives us another 100 millimeters height, and the same piece of threaded bar here goes into it. So we did that there. If I was doing this again, I would run a little piece of flat from up here. I would tack this bottom. I'd run a little piece of flat down here to there, say 5 mil by 1.25 inches, something like that, or 32 mil. And I'd also put one down here. And so if you had something that sat in there nicely against the pipe, something that sat in here nicely against the pipe, when you welded that wouldn't pull. It doesn't matter, doesn't make it work any better or worse, it doesn't hinder the whole show in any way. So I'll just zoom in there a little bit at the moment. So we've covered the main rolling chassis of it here. So nothing major. And yeah, you could knock this up in the morning, in a rainy morning, if you had a bit of bloody crap laying around. So the next part of it is a piece of 1.25" all thread, threaded bar. So just 1.25" UNC I chose, and I've actually threaded down the end. This here is a Massey Ferguson stabiliser pin off a 188, something like that, that went under the mudguard. I think it's 7/8, and it had a thread here. So I threaded down here, and you can see a spring washer there. I threaded down here, and I thought I could make different adapters just to screw in to hold different pieces. And like to use it with just that pin there, on a small drawbar, if you're splitting a tractor and you don't want it to kick backwards, you can just put that up the drawbar and it stops it from falling over. This flat plate I made with a couple of holes in it. The couple of holes in it were, at some stage I had a little piece of soft pine across the top, and I just had a couple of little PK screws holding it from sliding really, and that just sits up on there. So the thing I was going to do that I never did was I was going to drill through here so I could pop a pin in there, so if this was up against the tractor and you turned this whole shaft didn't want to turn. I never got round to it, didn't seem to be a problem really. So you can see when I bought the threaded bar, I bought the nut with it. I bought a nut, I just got 3 bits of metal and put on as a handle, just so you can turn it, and away you go. Now, because I used 1.25" rod, threaded rod, my thrust bearing is a TE20 kingpin thrust bearing. So that gives you a radial thrust bearing. So that sits down there. Now, I always put it with the hardened edge down to this plate here, and then I fit it like it would be on a tractor. So when I turn it, the dust and shit doesn't fall down in here. So if it was upside down, you have that lip for the rubbish to fit in. So the rubbish doesn't fit in. This and that sort of stick together fairly well, and away you go. So that piece of threaded rod, that gives me a lot of adjustment. So just for the little video here, look, that's 8 inches long. And by doing this, you could have a big length of that, you could have it sticking up a foot, you could do whatever. But that's just how I chose. Now this little thing, before I had the Sparex stands, this little stand here, it split a lot of stuff. It never gave me any worries at all. It's a quick little homemade thing, and look, it works fine. So to split a tractor and be successful at it, you don't need the biggest and flashiest gear. If you're in a shed like I am, and mechanicing's been your trade, being a diesel fitter's your trade for years, and you've got a bit of gear laying around and you can afford to, well fine, buy the more expensive stuff and the stuff, other stuff. But with this here, it's a quick homemade project, doesn't cost $1 million. If these axles here weren't solid, they were just a bit of pipe, wouldn't matter a toss, it'll be fine. Now this here, with the smaller ball bearings here, I've got a nice concrete floor there. If you have a dirt floor, this is no good of course, but there's nothing wrong with making a little angle iron frame, piece of angle up the sides here underneath, and just a couple of bars across on the angle iron, just to give you a little track. And when I used to have mine, on a couple of the crossbars there, I had a couple of holes so I could actually knock a couple of tent pegs in. So when you actually split the tractor, the track wasn't shifting around anywhere. The rail it went out on is the rail it come back on. So there's many ways you can do it, many ways you can do it cheaply. That's how I chose to do it years ago. I haven't used this in a while, but look, it's still a good thing. I'm certainly not going to throw it out. You can see that I use it that much that the wheels are a bit dirty and bogged up, but I'll probably deal with that today and just clean that up just for my peace of mind. But I used to put a squirt of oil in there of course they'd pick up a little bit of dirt. So, but anyway, because there was interest in the Sparex splitting stand, I thought I'd show you yeah, the little one I made and worked with for ages. It just worked fine. I do have a couple of tops around. I can't even tell you what I've done with them. They're probably sitting under the bench here somewhere. But I had a couple of shapes, and the idea was, actually I don't think I ever made it, I'll have it cut out. It was under your Fergie 35s, 65s, you know, you have your 4 bolts on your clutch inspection plate. The idea was to have a plate that would bolt there, sit on here with a peg through, and it didn't matter what happened then, if you're wheeling the back away, this stand wouldn't slide out from under it, it was safe. So I got around to doing some of that, some I didn't, I just bloody, yeah, got the camera out and away we went. So there you go, that's the splitting stand. I just thought I'd put that into this week's stew. Look, I'll probably put it as a title just so people know it's there, and yeah, you can have a look. But nothing wrong with making your own. You can do it with a bloody floor trolley, you can do it with all sorts of things. I had a friend that had one like this, and instead of all this, he had a bottle jack, and he had a little bit of angle eye, and the bottle jack sat in, and he had a hole in it, and it screwed down, and that gave me the adjustment. There's 100 ways of doing it. This is how I chose years ago. Have a go if you feel like it, eh?